And that certainly brings us to the introduction of Dr. Lynn Lehman. Dr. Lehman has been with Noblesville going back to 1984, and I really did not realize that it goes back 23 years. I've known him obviously in his role as superintendent before when he was working with Dr. Ellis, but did not realize that it went that far back. Actually came to town as principal of the Noblesville Junior High. Dr. Lehman has earned 4 degrees from Indiana University. And again, a shameless plug, but we do that at Indiana in case one of them doesn't work out. So his all 4 worked out.
Yeah.
Prior to moving to Noblesville, Dr. Lehman was an assistant principal at Concord High School in Elkhart, Indiana. You know how sometimes you explain how long you've been in an industry, and then you quickly say, yeah, I've been doing it 20 years, but I was 12 when I started. I've known Dr. Lehman for 27 years. I was 14 when I met him, and we weren't classmates. He was actually the assistant principal at Concord High School in Elkhart, where I was raised, and I've always just thought the world of him. The more I get to know him, the more I respect him, and certainly appreciate his involvement on the board. He's one of those talents that I've already told you about on this board of directors that we're very lucky to have. He has many professional memberships. One of those I had to share with you because I want to go to their annual convention. It's the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. Now that's got to be a party. I'd like to have that on my resume. So, Dr. Lehman and his wife Pam are very blessed with 2 daughters and a batch of grandchildren, and we're just very, very fortunate to have you in this community. Dr. Lehman.
I know they're going to take just a second and turn the lights out so that the screen can be more visible and better viewed. I want to begin with really kind of a candid response and a candid thank you. We are just thrilled to see the number of you who are in attendance today at this chamber luncheon that obviously have an interest not only in supporting the chamber and the community of Noblesville, but the Noblesville schools. Last year we were pleased. This was a great place for us to have this meeting and host it. We had half of this with the curtain. We were a bit crowded, but it worked out pretty well. We're just thrilled that there are this many people in our community who have an interest and who could be present today. I would like to begin with several introductions, if you will, of those who are in the administration in Noblesville schools who play really an integral and important role on a daily basis in the education of the children that we serve. First, John Atha, who's Assistant Superintendent, if you'd stand as I mention your names. Mark Booth, Director of Student Services. Jeannie Fredericks, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. Jeff Bragg, Director of Operations. Terry Rich, Director of Financial Services. Sharon Tristler, who's our Public Relations Director, and with Sharon is actually a writer for our Millstream, the school newspaper at Noblesville High School, Nina Kovalenko, and Marge Cox, who's our Director of Media Services. As always, as I stand before you, it is an absolute honor to represent the Noblesville schools and those who are employed by the school corporation and those over now 8,000 children that we serve on a daily basis in our community. I'd like to begin briefly today in talking about 4 various components of our school corporation. I'll give you a brief profile, talk briefly as well about academic performance, talk about the present, and talk about the future. I'll try to move fairly quickly through the first 3 because the future we want a little bit of time to reflect on and think on because we've reached a very serious point in the history of Noblesville schools, we believe. There will also be time, hopefully, at the end for some questions. We have 9 schools. We'll have 10 in the fall of 2007. We also provide educational services at the Connor Learning Center, which is our alternative school, and we also provide service at the rapidly growing Juvenile Detention Center, rapidly growing because they're bringing in students as well from beyond the township and beyond the county. As I mentioned to you on the count day in the fall of 2006, we exceeded 8,000 students for the first time. On that day, we enrolled and registered 8,257 students. That now makes us the 30th largest school corporation in the state of Indiana. Our total budget is projected in 2007 to be in excess of $76 million. Most of that budget, 63% in fact, is in the general fund. 87% of that 63% is paid to services such as salaries and benefits to our employees. We are indeed a people-based organization. 16% is for debt service. Those are the dollars that we gain from local taxes that pay our mortgages, pay the lease rental agreements on new buildings. 15% is for capital projects, which are those maintenance items that we have to maintain the buildings that we have, and 4% is transportation. Our revenue in this $76 million is very generally split now about 60% from the state of Indiana and 40% from local revenues and local levies in the general fund. We now have 491 certified staff. If we grow at previous rates, next year when I speak with you, I assume that will exceed 500. We have 475 classified staff. These include the people that are very, very, and most important in our schools, those who clean it, those who care for it, those who serve the public when they walk in the door, those who transport your children back and forth to and from school on a daily basis safely. We're also proud to say to you that Noblesville High School is an Indiana Chamber Best Buy, and we're pleased with that award because that award actually is an award of effectiveness and efficiency. It is an award of achievement of students. It is also an award based upon the wise use of tax dollars from our community. In 2005-2006, we had 7 four-star schools. All of our schools, with one exception, made adequate yearly progress. I've talked with you about that before. There are 39 cells, and if you fall below in one of those cells, you do not make AYP, and that was because, as you often read in the newspaper, of the performance of one segment of our school population. Public Law 221 has 5 categories of designations. We are in the top 2 in all of our schools. Obviously, 7 of them are exemplary, the highest designation possible, and 2 are commendable. 86% of our students exiting Noblesville High School pursue a college education. The predominant number is a 4-year institution. That number is up from last year when it was not quite 83%. 84% earn a Core 40 diploma, which has become the default diploma in Indiana, but it is a more rigorous diploma than just the general diploma that is there. On top of the Core 40 diploma, 43% of our kids earn an academic honors diploma. 96.5% of them show up every day to school. 16.5% are on free and reduced lunch, and even in our community of affluence, that number has increased from last year. 8.5% of our children require special education services. That is now nearly 1% above the state average of special education services, and is a number that also is growing fairly rapidly in our school corporation. 1.1% are enrolled in a vocational education program, and unfortunately 5.5% of them live in poverty before they come to school in the morning and when they go home at the end of the day. The growth of our community certainly is reflected in the growth and assessed value of our school corporation. We will have an assessed value in 2007 projected now at nearly $2.5 billion. That, of course, has been adjusted to true tax value, but that is a growing number in our corporation. We're projecting that it will grow about 5%, which is very conservative. It has grown at over 9% at times in our recent history. Many of you, of course, are interested in tax rates, as we all are, actually, as we prepare budgets and go to the public and talk with them about budgets that are future in our school corporation. For many years, our budget and tax rate was fairly flat, and we were proud of that. However, in 2007, we do anticipate that our tax rate will increase, perhaps slightly less than 5%, depending upon the growth in assessed value. Why does the increase occur? There are really 2 reasons. One, of course, is growth, and actually that's also the other reason, because growth demands that we build additional buildings to provide space for our children to learn, and those buildings, of course, are paid for out of lease rental agreements, which are analogous to the mortgages that we pay on our homes. Regarding performance, there's much made about I-STEP scores. They're often waited for by the press. They're published in our newspapers. We're very in tune to I-STEP scores in our school corporations because they provide one measure, if you will, of quality. They are a snapshot that we can all understand and get a sense of how our students are performing, but they are fairly limited. In 2006, our students were up just slightly over the previous year to 8.2%, passing both, and both is the most rigorous measure of the two. We can average them together and be a higher percent, but this is the most rigorous average of the two. This places us in the top 20 in the state of Indiana of school corporations with regard to performance. But much is made about I-STEP, but we know in Noblesville, and we have actually validation of that in Noblesville, that it certainly is only one measure and not necessarily the most important to our community. This afternoon, our school board will have a board meeting at 3 o'clock. As part of their presentation in that board meeting, we will receive the results of a recent survey that was done in our community, conducted by the IUPUI Survey Research Center. One of the questions asked of those respondents was, are I-STEP scores the best indicators of quality of an education offered by a school? As you can see here, many choose to disagree with that. There are certainly other measures, and we believe that Noblesville Schools is by far one of the best school corporations in the state of Indiana. Another common measure of statistical value and quantitative approach to measuring schools are the performance of our students on an SAT component. Again, we rank very high. 80% of our seniors take the SAT, which is a very high percentage, not only statewide but nationwide as well. These figures are a little bit flat, but the scores, which are always slightly above 1030, remain very strong throughout the state and the nation with regard to the performance of our students. The ACT, which is another test of college aptitude, is a growing number of scores that our kids take. It remains as well. Now 28% of our kids take that. We are well above state and national averages and continue to have strong scores in that area also. Last year, at a point in my speech, I made a comment about what you can do to improve the achievement of children. And I suggested to you that you read. And when you're done reading to them, read some more. And if they're older, then be a model reader in your home, because the fundamental skill of reading is critical to the success that we all enjoy, whether it is in mathematics or science or social studies or English language arts. Reading and being successful and proficient at it is critical. The second thing that I said to you, not in jest, was to make certain that your children, as they go through the school system, take the most rigorous courses they can possibly take. And that is critical. What this graph shows is really a result of a number of variables, but the issue at hand here is that many of our students exiting Noblesville High School walk out the door with several college credits. Some of these exceed 20 in the class of 2007. Now, what's happening here and why the graph is so great is that our guidance people are pushing these kids to take ACP courses and AP courses, where if you do well enough on a test, you'll get credit. But you can also now enroll in courses that are called dual credit, which means that you can get credit from Vincennes University and Ivy Tech while you're a student at Noblesville High School. It's a great opportunity to test the waters for college courses. It's a great opportunity to earn credit at a relatively reduced cost, and they transfer. Purdue, IU, and other state universities, Ball State, Indiana State, will accept, obviously, if you're successful in that coursework. And so you have a running start at the college world when you enroll in many of those places. And so at Noblesville High School, we are beyond encouraging, quite frankly, not quite demanding, but maybe insisting that we'd really like to see you gain dual credit in those years. And at the lower levels, the lower grades of juniors and sophomores and seniors as well, we'd really like to see you enrolled in those courses in which may grant you college credit if you are proficient as well, such as the AP Advanced Placement courses. Currently, in Noblesville schools, we have a number of things going on. We're building a new Noblesville Intermediate School that we will open in the fall of 2007. It will house grades 5 and 6. We're opening a new elementary school, Noble Crossing Elementary. It'll open in the fall of 2007. It will house grades K-4. We are opening a freshman campus of Noblesville High School in the fall of 2007, and as the name implies, we will isolate our freshmen in that spot. Okay? Also of note, and something that I want to pause to thank many of you in the audience for, and that is we had a campaign a year ago or so in which many of you as chamber members contributed to a partnership between Noblesville Schools as a public institution and Noblesville member backers through private donations that allowed us to make significant and dramatic improvements to our football field. Certainly the chamber member that stepped up to the plate, if you will, was Hare Chevrolet, and they and you deserve the public thanks that we need to give and often don't give enough to our community for the support that we derive in public education, not only for the generosity but the interest that our community has in public education in general. And we thank you for that. Currently, the enrollment of Noblesville Schools profile looks like this. When I made this chart, which would have been when we counted kids, we had 530 students enrolled in the senior class. At that time, we had 730 enrolled in first grade. Last year, when I spoke with you, was the first time we had any class exceed 700. Now we have two, first and second. We fully expect that next year we will have at least 3. And so growth, which will come to us by moving in, is actually already at hand for our school corporation as those classes of students begin to migrate through the grades and cause and prompt some of the conversation that you'll hear in just a few minutes. In the fall of 2006, we grew by 6.56%. The most we had ever grown previously was slightly more than 4. And so we had these projections, but the reality set in as nearly 500 new students crossed the thresholds of our schools in the fall. We have enrollment projections that suggest to us that by 2012 we will have in excess of 10,000 students in Noblesville schools. Our board at its March meeting will receive an updated feasibility study and demographic study that has been conducted and has been conducted previously by Dr. Bob Boyd at Indiana State, in which those figures will be updated, taking into consideration the 6.56% that I talked about earlier, which was not in his last projections. I want to delve now into the future a little bit and slow the pace down just slightly, particularly to talk about 4 slides that I'm going to share. I believe it is important at this point to compliment previous boards in Noblesville and compliment previous administrations in Noblesville, because I think in retrospect, history will judge them as having done a fine job in guiding the school corporation through growth, effectively utilizing the facilities that were present, making certain that schools and buildings that might have been vacated by movements and building of the new Noblesville High School, which now has in it its 11th class, and making certain that everything behind it was filled in admirably, and also contributed to the educational program that was there and in the school corporation. But I believe that we are at a crossroads or at a path, a fork in the road, if you will, probably where we were at approximately 18 or 20 years ago. And that is this board and administration and all of us actually as members of this community and certainly members of our faculties and all of our schools will need now to wrestle with the future, because there are no more buildings to vacate and leave behind, and we'll need to make some very tough and difficult decisions about what the future might look like with regard to educational programming and grade spans and actually the efficient use of the buildings that we have in the future. Some of the decisions perhaps can be delayed a short period of time, but some of them are fairly pressing at this point in time. Much of this will become more clear as we get our next feasibility and demographic study in a month. What I'm going to share with you represents our current thinking. It's designed to prompt dialogue among groups such as yourself, among our community, among the faculties of our schools. It does represent a path for the future, but those considerations along that path are subject to public input and the discovery of new and pertinent information. But there are some changes that are fairly substantial and significant. These will be divided actually into 4 goals: an elementary goal, a middle level goal, a high school goal, and a corporation-wide goal. At the elementary level, the alternatives that we're considering obviously relate to space issues and wanting to provide sufficient educational and auxiliary space to accommodate the return to a K-5 grade configuration. We have an interest in reducing the number of transitions that our children now make on the continuum of education in Noblesville schools, many of them from preschool to grade 12. In doing so, we believe we'll be considering at least the following alternatives. Those would include, on this short list perhaps, replacing Forest Hill, adding perhaps to North Elementary School, or possibly moving forward in building the 8th Elementary School. This obviously prompts then a domino effect through the rest of our school corporation. At the middle level, we will begin serious deliberation and consideration into providing appropriate educational space to return to a 6-8 model in our school corporation. Once again, we have an interest in reducing the number of transitions that are made. We'd also like to expand the grade span of the time children are in individual buildings. We believe we can enhance the educational program by doing so, and we believe we can also be efficient in our use of resources in our community and in our buildings by making these changes. Some of this work at the middle level needs to occur whether that happens or not, but in that regard, we believe that initial considerations should be made, certainly by doing some upgrades at the old high school, current middle school. We would need to make some reconfigurations at the new intermediate school, which seems ironic because it's not yet occupied, but those provisions structurally in the design have been made for that to occur, if indeed it was ever going to occur. And then obviously, if we would have 2 separate schools, we would have some needs to develop some outdoor facilities for competition if that were the case. At Noblesville High School, we also, in the 10 full years of use of the building, have developed a few needs, again, because of growth and expanding programs. A year ago today, the most common question I was asked was, what are we going to do about Wayne Township? And of course, that was answered fairly quickly. Since that time, I'm often asked, Lynn, when are we going to build the next high school? I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know this, and that is our board is proactive, and we need to begin to deliberate about those issues as we move forward and include that into our vision and strategic plan for what the future might look like in Noblesville. We do have some needs at the high school and on the programs that contribute to the success that our students have at the high school. There are some areas in the wellness in particular that need some upgrading and some expansion in that regard. Our kids, quite frankly, currently in weight training in the classes that we have for them are spilled over well into the hallway. We will have in our new facilities cardiovascular rooms that are not present in our high school. And we believe our children, our students, our young men and women deserve those kinds of opportunities in a community such as ours. And so the goals and the alternatives that we're going to be looking at with regard to a second high school, or prior to a second high school certainly, is that there are some needs to be met at the first one, both curricularly and extracurricularly. But we also believe that we need to begin to think seriously about and to plan for a second high school in our community. At the corporation level, our transportation facility is overflowing with no room to move or to expand. And there are ways and options to do that. In maintenance, we actually already lease space to store maintenance equipment off-site. We just really had to protect and keep our equipment and the dollars that are spent for it inside. And in the central office, we have now 2 portable classrooms. on the west side due to the need for office space. We can live with that for a long period of time, but there will be a point in time when there will be a need for those kind of things to be taken care of and solved. This just simply gives you an idea of the scope of each of them together. The date in it is nothing more than a planning date. The information that I've just shared with you has been derived from very serious board deliberations beginning in late last October and over several months. Once again, I would want to reiterate to you this: we believe this is an evolving plan and an evolving process. There certainly is information out there that we've not discovered and need to discover. There are comments that we've not heard that we need to hear through this process. But I do want to share with you today that we have established a path to move forward, although that path certainly is not the only one of which we might follow. On a daily basis, I always reflect on the first board goal, because this is what we strive to do each day, every day, all day long, in every one of our schools, attempting to ensure that each one of our children is challenged and successful on a daily basis. This remains our board's first goal and has for several years, and I trust will in the future. We want to provide support for each school, we as administrators and members of the board, as it strives to raise the level of achievement for all students, reduce the gap between low and high performing students, or high and low performing students, enhance students to choose healthy lifestyles, and to offer learning experiences that enable students to become successful citizens. Many of those successful citizens we certainly hope will return to our community and contribute to the kind of success that is enjoyed in this room today. And we trust that they will be prepared to do so upon their return. I'd certainly take any questions that you might have. If there's